We are joined now by George Stoia III and Eddie Radosevich of Sooner Scoop because I need them to help me. I need them to explain something to me because the Big 12 has had an issue with one of its tiebreaker scenarios. And if you've looked at, there's a great website where you can take the remaining 2 weeks of Big 12 games and put in whatever result you want, and it will spit out who's going to play in the championship game. And there's a bunch of different permutations of this. Like you could get Bedlam again. You could get Texas, Oklahoma State. You could get K-State, Oklahoma State. There's a lot of ways to go with this. But the Big 12 has made a change to the tiebreakers because somebody was looking at it and going, something seems weird. So, Eddie, I apologize for this. I'm going to ask George to do this because I saw on your show that yeah. So, George, like I'm a 5-year-old, explain what the Big 12 has done.
Yeah, I will try my best. So essentially, there are 4 teams right now tied for second place in the Big 12. So that leaves a lot of discrepancy of what's going to happen these last 2 weeks. Lots of football to be played. Like you said, you can kind of plug it in to a machine, it pops it out. Going into this, the assumption is, look, you could have a situation where Texas wins out, they're in. They're already in first place. But you have a situation where you could have Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State all win out, and there's a 3-way tie for second. So who gets in? Well, logically, you would look at that and you say, well, Oklahoma State, they beat both Oklahoma and Kansas State, so they should get in. But according to the rule, as it's written right now, the tiebreaker rule, it reads as though if there is a situation where there's multiple team ties, which this would fall into that category, and they didn't all play head-to-head, and Oklahoma and Kansas State did not play this year, will not play this year, then it goes to the second tiebreaker rule, which is win percentage against common opponent. In that scenario, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma all played UCF, Kansas, and Iowa State. Kansas State would advance because they went 3-0 against those 3 teams. Oklahoma went 2-1, and Oklahoma State went 1-2. So the belief heading into this last couple weeks was that Kansas State in that scenario would get in. And that was even confirmed according to Scott Wright of the Oklahoman. He confirmed that with a Big 12 official literally on Saturday. Well, everybody started reading into that, tweeting about it, writing about it. We wrote about it, all the scenarios, and we're like, isn't that such a dumb rule that Oklahoma State would get screwed over, basically not be in it? Well, apparently the Big 12 saw all that.
They're message board posters.
Yes, and they are now going in. They had a meeting on Wednesday with all the athletic directors. That meeting was completed Wednesday morning, and they're supposedly supposed to have a statement come out sometime Wednesday, basically saying that the rule is now that OSU would get in because of head-to-head. And, I guess in the meeting, from what I understand from the people I talked to, there was a lot of talk of the Big 12 basically said the rule was written the wrong way. In the first place, it wasn't clear. The intent was always supposed to be that head-to-head would take precedent in this situation. But clearly, again, you showed the rules. It did not read that way. It read in a way that Kansas State would get in this situation. So I hope that makes somewhat sense. Oklahoma fans are pissed off because they think the Big 12 is out to get them. But in this scenario, it's really Kansas State that's getting screwed. And I even talked to some people over that cover Kansas State, and it sounds like they are, the athletic administration there is pretty upset by this because they felt like they are now getting screwed.
Well, but Oklahoma State was getting screwed first. And here's the original rule. I have it up on the screen. My favorite part of this, so head-to-head, open parentheses, best cumulative win percentage in games among the tied teams. If not, comma that doesn't belong there, clearly this was never even edited. Like somebody just dashed this thing together and threw it out there. Barry Trammell, great OKC area writer, compared and contrasted theirs with the Mountain West's. And the Mountain West is written in very clear, concise language where there's no objection you can make. So yeah, Oklahoma State would have absolutely been getting screwed here. But what's amazing to me is they're calling this a clarification. They are literally changing the rule with 2 games left in the season.
It's beautiful. And I think that is the main basis of every Oklahoma fan's idea that the Big 12 has been out to get Oklahoma. They've been out to get Texas. I think that just from a personal standpoint, it'd be real fun if Oklahoma and Texas had 12 or 13 penalties on Saturday in Provo and Ames. I think that would only add the fuel to the fire. But yeah, like if you're Kansas State, and at the same time, I do understand Oklahoma State should win that tiebreaker. I think every person, as big of an OU fan as they could be, it's like they got beat in Stillwater. Same thing with Kansas State. Oklahoma State should win that tiebreaker. It just goes back to the basis of the Big 12 kind of, I don't know, flying by the seat of their pants, it seems like.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, what they really should do is have Nelly announce. Nelly should draw it from a hat, and then he's going to play halftime.
Band-Aid, and the two names are written inside of the Band-Aid on his eye.
Exactly. Or when I was in high school, if they had like a 3-way tie at the top of the district or a 4-way tie, and the top 2 teams in the district would go to the playoffs, they would have this crazy tiebreaker format where it's basically like a Kansas tiebreaker where the teams would each get the ball from the 10, and whoever scored got to play against the other team that scored. And like, it could be over in like 8 minutes, and then you decide who's in the playoff. Like, you need something like that made for TV.
I was hoping to get on the tiebreaker rules. The very bottom one is a coin toss.
Yes.
And I was like, please let us get to a Friday Night Lights.
A Friday Night Lights, Whataburger in the middle of nowhere. That would be amazing.
Awesome. That would have been great.
There is a opportunity if every home team won over the next 2 weeks.
Yes.
It would be an 8-way tie for first place in the Big 12, which would just, obviously for people in Norman, it would be a complete disaster because that means that you're losing in Provo. But it would be, from a just entertainment standpoint, kind of what the Big 12 deserves with as poorly as they.
Who would go to the title game in that scenario?
It's a great question. Do you have it? I think Eddie's got it pulled up.
I have it pulled up. So that
we flip the coin.
Also, this website,
you put them in.
It's bball.net.nothing. Is that right? Something like that?
Yeah, bball.notnothing.net.
.net. Yeah.
This sounds like a website from 1995. This is amazing.
It kind of looks like one.
It's amazing, and it's accurate. It's totally correct. It was funny yesterday.
Yes. They've adjusted it already.
Yes, yeah. It went down. It was not on the site anymore. Like you couldn't get to it for like a couple hours. And then he fixed it, and I was like, wow, this guy's fantastic.
It's the beauty of college football that people have been sitting around and spending their time at the office or wherever, just trying to put all of the types of formulas in to see who's going to play for the Big 12 championship.
What are the odds that the person who created this website created it while getting paid for work? At least 75%, right?
A lot, yes.
Definitely. And he's probably also posting on a message board somewhere talking about who should be fired from whatever school he covers or follow.
Well, he was tweeting it out too. I guess he it's a big for basketball and how you're going to get into the conference tournament and what your seeding is in that, and then the NCAA tournament. And he said this week though is like the most views it's ever gotten, and it's just all Big 12 football scenarios, which is just hilarious and speaks to college football too.
Well, the 8-way tie thing is amazing. Yeah, my friend Max Olson tweeted it out the other day, what the 8-way tie would look like, but he didn't hit the calculate button or show us what happened after you hit the calculate button, because I'm fascinated to know who wins, like who plays for the title in that scenario.
I had to look up and see where a couple of these games were. I was not familiar with West Virginia, where that is next week, but
all right. I cannot wait for this. But you know what this does though, guys? So we're moving to a divisionless world next year. Yeah. And obviously the Big 12 has been way ahead of the curve on that with divisionless football. But this is going to be amazing in every conference, because we're going to have this sort of nonsense every November now.
We talked about that on our podcast today, is like, should they go to divisions because you avoid these sorts of situations? Or I know SEC, talked about, what is it, pods or whatever. So it's like, what is the easiest solution? Or like we talked about, do you just take the highest ranked teams? Because I told Eddie, I said, if you look at it, if all these teams went out and you just want the 2 best teams in the Big 12 to play each other, I think an objective person looks at it and goes, well, it's probably Oklahoma and Texas that are the 2 best teams, if that's the way you want to do it. And that's how the college football playoff rankings are. So do you put those in your tiebreaker situations, or do you do it the head-to-head style? Which, I mean, I kind of lean towards, look, head-to-head is what should matter most. But, I could see a situation where you have the rankings come into play or something, but I don't know.
But head-to-head doesn't help when everybody doesn't play everybody. In this particular case, you do have a situation where Oklahoma State did beat both Kansas State, and Oklahoma. So at least they've got that. But we're going to have a 16-team SEC, an 18-team Big Ten. The ACC is going to be, I can't even do the math, 17. So it is going to be complicated like this, because you'll have situations where it comes down to who played who and when. But no, don't make it any more logical. Like, make it complete nonsense like this. I do agree with you on the ranking thing, though, which, by the way, the Big 12 has history with. Remember, OU was the beneficiary of that in 2008 when they and Texas Tech were all 11-1 and 7-1 in the league.
Oh, Oklahoma fans oftentimes like to forget that they've been the beneficiary of the transfer portal. They've been the beneficiary of the college football playoff and the way that that's all been set up. And obviously, inside the Big 12, they've been the beneficiary of a long time. Texas and OSU would win if every home team won over the next 2 weeks.
I think that's the most scenarios give you a Texas-Oklahoma State championship game. Like that.
The tiebreaker against OU and Kansas State and everybody else.
And that's why, Andy, the 3 ways OU gets in is basically Texas loses to Iowa State, OU would get in. Texas loses to Texas Tech and Iowa State beats Kansas State, OU would get in. And then if OSU just loses one of their last 2 games, either at Houston or BYU at home, OU gets in. It's those 2 teams. OSU and Texas,
they're in the driver's seat.
They are in the driver's seat to reach the Big 12 championship game.
Which would seem, okay, and you say, oh, that sounds pretty safe. If one of those hadn't just lost 45-3 at UCF.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was they got curb stomped, and you would think that they're going to go down to Houston, take care of business. The thing in Ames is really interesting this week, just because of the history that Texas has had in Jack Trice, and I think they've lost 4 of 5, and now the comments from the offensive linemen kind of makes it even more interesting, and especially from the Oklahoma perspective with the 10 a.m. game in Provo. If you're into hate watching, if you're an Oklahoma fan, and I'm sure that there's a lot of Oklahoma fans that wake up, they cheer for OU, and then they cheer against OSU and Texas every weekend. These next 2 weeks are kind of made for you. And I think, George, we talked about it today. It would seem that unless something just drastically crazy happened, you're probably going to know by Saturday night. Like, I wouldn't think that Tech could go to Austin and win next weekend. Certainly don't think that BYU is going to go to Stillwater and win. Stranger things have happened, but Saturday's a big day for the Oklahoma football fan.
Yeah, it does feel like if Texas and Oklahoma State take care of business this week, it's not. I don't have a lot of faith in Texas Tech against Texas. That if Texas is going to lose, it's going to beat Iowa State. So, and that's the Big 12's playoff chance right there, because if Texas loses, that's it. And so wow, but it is amazing. I don't recall a league ever changing a rule mid-season, specifically 2 games to go. Like, that is very unusual.
Yeah, and that's why, like, again, it goes to all the Oklahoma fans want to believe in this conspiracy that the Big 12 is out to get Oklahoma. And I'm not going to tell a fan how to be a fan. I kind of love it that they're so out for that. But I think at the end of the day, this is not a situation where the Big 12 is trying to screw Oklahoma, because again, this doesn't really affect them.
It doesn't affect them. I would be mad if I were K-State people now, because it was written that way. And even though in your heart of hearts, that spot should go to Oklahoma State, you're like, well, hey, but we would have been there.
Right.
Yeah. It's crazy to think that they just went in and did that. And not to mention that, this athletic director teleconference or whatever it was today, the meeting, they have them every Wednesday. But I know, George, you had talked to some people that, like, Oklahoma was completely unaware that this was even on the table going into.
I was told by multiple people at multiple different schools that they were unaware that this was even something that was going to be
just
discussed.
By the way, we're changing the rules.
And again, that goes.
And I love that they're calling it a clarification, not a change of the rules.
And again, that just my takeaway from all of this is the Big 12 is just. This is probably harsh, but they're run by morons right now. Like, it's kind of a clown show. And the fact that we're even talking about this, that no one's like double checked that, like you said, Andy, didn't even take out the comma there in that one sentence. It's like, this is just, it's unbelievable.
Well, I want to clarify something, because I earlier in the season, when they announced that Nelly was going to play halftime, I did a top 5 Nelly songs, and I left the Tip Drill remix of EI out of there. And so I'm gonna clarify that the Tip Drill remix of EI is number 2 behind Ride With Me. Or
I like that.
yeah,
I can sign
right.
Dilemma's number 1 for me. I love Dilemma.
Dilemma's great. Kelly Rowland's great, but Ride With Me is the best Nelly song. It's not close. The melodic quality of his voice plus it's still actually a hip hop song. But
you sound like a big Nelly fan. Are you going to be in attendance for this, Andy?
I should. I don't know. Should I go to the SEC championship game, which is a win and in playoff scenario game, or should I go and watch Nelly? I don't know.
I think that's a de facto national championship for a lot of people. The Georgia Alabama, the way those two teams are playing, I don't know if anybody in the college football world.
But I don't think he's going to do the Tip Drill. It's not really good for network television.
No.
I would bet not, but maybe. What is the Big 12's new slogan? Newer, bigger, faster, stronger, whatever.
I don't know. They got rid of one true champion, and all of a sudden they don't even know who's going to be in the championship.
That's true.
So,
well, I'm glad we've clarified things, boys.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Andy Radosevich and George Stoia III, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples On 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.